Joining us now in Studio B is our good friend Steve Cleveland, former head basketball coach. It's good to have you not on the phone, Coach.
It's nice. Nice to be here. A little chilly. I'm not used to this cold weather.
Yeah.
I get away 2 months and I got off that plane and realized, man, I don't have a jacket.
Somebody get the man a jacket. You're calling the BYU basketball game against Weber State tomorrow as part of the Beehive Classic. Besides basketball, what else is on the agenda while you're in Utah?
You know, connecting with some friends and watching practice. We're not here that long, so it's been good. It's been great. I've got so many good friends and good experiences here. It's always fun to come back.
This team has been a pleasant surprise. It's been a fun team to watch to start out the year. They're 7-2 through 9 games. How would you define the identity of this team?
They have great team chemistry. And you develop team chemistry when everyone's on the same page, offensively and defensively, and you can see the interaction. I had a chance to watch it this summer and to see the development offensively and defensively of kind of new systems, different schemes. I think their identity is that they are together. They're all on the same page, and you can watch them play and sense and know that, you know what, offensively they're taking good shots. They're moving the ball side to side. Defensively, they're guarding ball screens differently. They're defending the post differently. And overall, I just think there's a different toughness about this group.
Is BYU's success this season based more on offensive efficiency, and they have been efficient, or defensive improvements?
You know, I think the biggest improvement for everyone to watch would probably be at the defensive end. And I think that with the schemes and just the intensity and the energy, you see them celebrating defensive accomplishments on the floor. This is a different mindset of a group. Now, offensively, I think one thing that impacts good defense is how you take care of the ball. You're not turning it over. It's hard to guard and defend turnovers in transition. And when you take quick shots, three-pointers, long rebounds, tough to defend, and a lot of that's been eliminated. So I think their system offensively, what they're doing, has really helped them defensively as well.
How has the start changed your expectations on what you thought this team could do this year, or has it?
You know, my expectations were that they were going to be better. I could see that in the summer. I could see that they were buying into this. And then watching them early, I knew that it would continue to get better, and it will get better. I think they're built right now, as you talked about, we had a conversation, they're built to be better in the WCC tournament. They're built to be better on the road. And those hiccups, 2 or 3 of those games, I think they go and win those games because offensively and defensively, they have different schemes. There's a different preparation. And overall, there's a different mindset now about going on the road. I mean, they're 4-1 away from this building.
Impressive.
3-0 on the road, 1-1 at neutral. That's a good indication and evidence that they're going to be better in conference play as well as the tournament.
What do you expect BYU to do on a neutral floor, the home of the Utah Jazz, Vivint Smart Home Arena, against Weber State tomorrow?
You know, first of all, Weber State, Randy Ray is a great coach. You know, 5 championships there in his 11 years. They're very, very good offensively. They execute. They're a good three-point shooting team. They're shooting 50% from the field, 40 from the three. They don't have the athletes that BYU has. They're not as good defensively. I've watched them play twice now. Here at Fresno State, I watched them play, and they played UVU the other night. So I've seen them up close and personal in what they do. I think they'll struggle with BYU's intensity and toughness. I think it's going to be a good game, but I think BYU wins that game, even though it is on a neutral site. And when you look at the success BYU's had, and then they haven't been very good. Weber's not been very good. They got blown out at Fresno, blown out at UVU on the road, so they're reeling a little bit. So they'll come out and compete. Randy's a great coach, and they'll be prepared, but I think BYU has the advantage on both ends of the floor.
Not only has he been a really great story, but he's also a really good basketball player. What have been your thoughts on McKay Cannon?
Wow, you know what's interesting is I really didn't notice him that much in practice, and I probably watched them practice 10 or 15 times during the summer. And then all of a sudden I see him playing, and it's refreshing. He's got a unique story. He does all the little things. He's a kid that's tough. I love how he increases the angles, the spacing. He makes great passes. He's a great passer of the basketball, and he's got confidence. You know, he's a junior. He's a guy that you can count on. You can trust him.
He's played in the NCAA tournament.
Exactly. But he just has the ability. He's just one more piece. Gives the BYU more depth at not only at the point but at the wing, and I think with Jashir and McKay, you've really improved your point guard position.
It's going to be kind of a weird emotional roller coaster for McKay Cannon tomorrow because he's playing against his former coach and his former team. What would you say to him going into this game if you were his coach?
Let the game come to you. just let the game come to you, okay? You're going to get the shots you'll get. You don't have anything to prove here, okay? You had good experiences there. You had some not so good experiences maybe. The bottom line is just a fresh start here and just play within yourself. Sometimes guys want to prove something, and he's got no agenda. That's one of the things I love about this team, not just with McKay. It's an agenda-less team. There aren't agendas on the floor. And sometimes you can watch teams play and go, whoa, where's that coming from? Where does that shot come from? What's going on? What's that attitude coming off the bench? You're not seeing that with this group, and I think that's why everybody's expectations are a little bit higher.
Speaking of expectations, and we were talking about, certainly there's Weber tomorrow and then Utah the next week. In terms of a possibility of an at-large berth into the NCAA tournament for this BYU team, how big is that Utah game? Is that a must-win for that to happen?
It's a must-win if you're not going to win the conference tournament or win the championship. Okay? I mean, so, yeah, it's really important. And I think the advantage is to BYU, the way they're playing, the style of play, they'll be very similar to the way the two teams play. I mean, Utah is very well coached, executing the offense in half court, execute defensively. So you're going to see two mirrors of two teams that play very, very much the same, where that has not been the case in the past. But they need to win that game. They need to win that game. And then, as you both mentioned, not lose at Pepperdine, not lose at UOP, not lose at Santa Clara. You win those games that you're supposed to win, and now you put yourself in a position. I mean, that team that just got blown out here the other night, Illinois State, they had 29 wins. And they suffered from not being in a P5 conference. Yeah. They were good enough to be in the tournament. And that's what you don't ever know. St. Mary's has had 27, 28 wins and never got in the tournament. So you need to win the conference tournament, meaning that 3 days, and I think they're built to do that. But certainly a win against Utah will help them. They don't need those kind of losses right now, especially knowing it was at home.
How would you define the chemistry of the BYU basketball coaching staff right now with the emergence of Heath Schroyer as one of the vocal leaders on the bench, joining Dave Rose, coming back, and then Quincy Lewis and Tim Lacombe, of course?
You know what? Obviously, I know Heath really well. He's like part of my family, and I know that he and Dave are good friends, and the chemistry is as good as it's ever been. And I think both Heath and Dave are to be given credit for that. I think Heath has a lot of responsibility coaching right now, but he's embraced the guys. Quincy has had a lot of success before he came here. Tim Lacombe has been around, and I think Heath and Dave have both embraced that. I think that there's more team meetings. They're meeting every day. There's a culture there that says we're going to do this together. And I think that Lee Camard, who is a grad assistant or whatever that calling is, whatever it's called now, as he's doing some graduate work, he's another great resource to this team. So I like the staff. I think that they've made some changes. I think that's the thing I have such great respect for Coach Rose for. He knew things weren't like they needed to be, and he had to do some hard things, and he made some changes. And certainly having Heath here and being a part of that, and them having a previous relationship and having that trust with each other, you can see it in the players. The players trust Coach Rose. They trust Heath. They trust his staff. They can see they're getting along. When that doesn't happen and you don't have that chemistry in the staff, it carries over to a team, and you get surprised. And you want to have as few surprises as you can during a season. I expect this team to be really solid. They're not going to win every game. Okay, but they look differently playing in wins and losses, and I think that's the most important thing.
It just feels different. There is a tangible feel that is very different.
It is different. They're playing the game the way it needs to be played, and pace is pace is still important. You want to run, you want to push the ball, and you want to do those things. You get deflections, you get stops. That's how you get it. That's where you run. But you look at the NC2A last year. Of the 65 or 66 teams that participated in it, there was only 2 or 3 that were in the top 100 in pace. This game is played in the half court. I'm not saying you don't run and push it and have exciting basketball when you get stops, but you got to get stops in the half court and you got to execute. The thing that Coach Roy mentioned to me the other day, I talked to him, he said that when they can go side to side 2 to 3 times, 60% of the time they score. If they just go one side, for instance, that game the other night, 2 out of 13 is what they were when they just shot the ball from the first side. So when you watch this team play and you watch them go from side to side to side, it's a 60% chance that they're going to score.
Wow.
And those are good numbers. And those are the analytics and numbers that are important. And I think that's the influence that both Coach Rose and Coach Schroyer have understood. And they come to that understanding that you've got to move the ball side to side. And when you do that, it's just so much easier to guard. And the last thing I would say is I love what Coach Schroyer is doing with ball screens. I mean, they're guarding ball screens. They're pushing them down on the wings. They're leveling off. You're not seeing open threes. That was one of the reasons that they had so much success against UVU. They just locked them up with all the ball screens, guarded them different. It was a different screen, a different scheme, and obviously a better effort.
I know you're a big fan of Yoli Childs, and he certainly hasn't disappointed so far this year. It's going to be WCC play before we know it. It's going to be here. Where do you think Yoli fits in terms of best players in the conference?
Well, he's definitely. I mean, you know, you've got St. Mary's, got Landale. You know, you got I don't want to even say surprising Gonzaga team, but they just fill in pieces.
Jonathan Williams is
Jonathan
really good.
Williams is really good. Okay, and Tilly's not bad either inside. And so you know, those are the dominant post players inside. But he's not going to take a backseat to any of them. And I think the thing that he's so good at is that number one, he steps out now and hits some threes. Yeah. That which makes it harder. And the high-low is so much more effective because there's no help. There's no help on the side. You know, even there's no help defense. And when they execute that high-low to Yoli and it's one-on-one inside, he's such a quick jumper and finishes. It's a real advantage. I love his game. He's got a big ceiling. We've talked about that a lot. And I think he matches up really well with all of those guys in the league. So he's one of the premier post players, and he's going to get doubled. He's going to see a lot of different looks. And when he plays Gonzaga, it's going to be different than when he plays other teams because they do have size. But he's a gamer. I mean, he wants to be out there. I could tell the other night he was frustrated, got in foul trouble, wanted to be in the game, you know. Then boom, all of a sudden he scores 10 points in about 2 minutes. And so he has that explosiveness about him and a lot of confidence.
Yeah, he had a quiet 17 and 7.
It was.
An off game for Yoli. Coach, great to have you with us.
Good to be with you.
Stay warm in this balmy Utah weather.
Yes.
We'll see you tomorrow on BYU TV.
Look forward to it. See you.